up and all the main streets and trying to get me up and down. And I was pissing down, sorry my expression, but I was lashing, I was soaked again, you know. The Lord Mayor made some sort of an excuse now he couldn't appear, so the Chief Sheriff was there. And I came out and with my Irish blazer, and the Irish blazer tricolour, he wouldn't go on the stage with me, and I took it off. That's when I realised what sort of bastards these are, and like I mean that, you know. He wouldn't go on the stage until I took a blazer off, and I was so naive, and we Sammy loved to keep the peace, and I'll just do it without the blazer, John. Had it been now, I'd come to shove it, you know.
With an Olympic medal in his pocket, John McNally was lured into the professional ring, but Belfast had plenty of fighters ready to take his place.
Belfast became a very mean city, a very hard city where, you know, a reputation for fighting, well, being Belfast, of course, but the individuals within it, you know, would have taken to boxing naturally. So that Belfast and boxing, it goes together hand in hand, actually probably since the town became industrialised.
They were all working class areas, and the clubs were all thriving. I remember we had a couple of clubs. We had the Windsor and the Crown Club down in Crown Entry. One was downstairs, and the floor above them was the Windsor. So they were really bustling then. With kids boxing, you were boxing then. You would box maybe twice in the one night, maybe 3 times, but usually twice. There was that many in the entry.
From the fighting streets of Belfast came one of the great rivalries in Irish sports. John Caldwell and Freddie Gilroy were about the same age and about the same weight.
Thank you.
And they were destined to be forever linked together in Belfast boxing folklore.
Those years are going to cost a fortune.
They're legends. You know, these guys who are probably better known for their amateur careers than their professional careers, and people, you know, talk about them almost as if they're mythical figures.
Well, I was just ahead of John as a schoolboy, juvenile, youth, junior, senior. We had been friends, we had been teammates. We were in the same Irish team that went all over the world together. You know, we went to America, Canada, Australia. We went to Germany together. We went to, you name it, we've been there.
John Caldwell and Freddie Gilroy were both selected to box for Ireland at the 1956 Olympics in Melbourne. And they were joined on the team with 2 fighters who formed Dublin's great boxing rivalry of that era.
Perry and Teat. Teat and Perry. Perry and Teat were like Morecambe and Wise or Abbott and Costello. They were a pair, Kelly and Roach. Who was better? Who knows who was better? But they had a complete contrast in styles.
F. Tight takes on Hans Muller in light vest in the featherweight class.
Like Fred Teat, if you could imagine, was classy in the old classic style, you know, the jab, the cross. Fred was wonderful feet. Fred Teat could have been a world champion skipper. So if you're a good skipper, it means you're good on your feet. He was fabulous on his feet, fabulous with his fist, and lovely and clean cut in every sense. Harry was a fighter, but also the fighting kind of disguised his boxing ability, which was brilliant as well. The clashing styles made it. Harry wouldn't give you a rest for a second. Harry was over you like a rash all the time, but just not, he didn't swing at you, he boxed at you. And the contrast made it, and the fact that they were friends, I think that made it. But they beat the daylight out of each other in the ring.
Gilroy, Caldwell, Teat and Perry were all selected for the Olympic Games in Melbourne in 1956, along with Tony Byrne of Drogheda. But these were the 1950s, and if you didn't work, you didn't get paid. So a fundraising campaign under the banner of Send Byrne to Melbourne was set up.
In my days, the areas which were the strongest areas was Belfast, Dublin, and we were probably in there toe-to-foot for small town. It was tough in those days. And the people of Drogheda went together, got a ticket for him, sent him off to the Olympic Games. Like he was only a breadman, an ordinary breadman. So you can imagine, he probably had to sell bread and get his wages out of the bread because he worked for a company. So he had to work very hard.
Tony Byrne led a boxing team packed with seasoned internationals, but the Games got off to a very bad start for the Irish.
Christy Murphy, the manager, got a serious health problem on the plane going to Australia. I think it was known, came out later as the long haul blood clot in his leg, and he went straight to hospital from the plane. I went in the ambulance with him to St. Vincent's Hospital in Melbourne, and he spent 10 weeks in hospital, missed the whole Olympic Games. I wasn't allowed in the village because I hadn't got accreditation, you know, but I done the going to the hospital to see Christy and getting them know what was happening, different things. But it was a fantastic team when you think that we had 6 boxers who came out from Ireland with no coach. And we had a lad called Pat Sharkey who was working in Australia, and he boxed for Ireland. He came down from Queensland. He worked on one of the big dam projects, construction, and he came down. So we had 7 in the Olympics.
Harry Perry, Martin Smith and Pat Sharkey all went out in the early rounds. And even though he won his first bout, it looked like John Caldwell was also going to make an early exit from the games.
The doctor looked at Johnny and he said, "Sorry, son, you're out. You're not boxing anymore in these championships." And I'll never forget Johnny's face. Tears were coming out through the closed eyelids. The eyes were closed. And I said to the doctor, because Johnny was a flyweight, he was on early, and there was still 2 hours of boxing. And I said to the doctor, "Would you come back in 2 hours' time and see what you think, you know?" And I remember going out, taking Johnny's towel and going out to a lady. She was selling cold drinks. She had Coke bottles with ice underneath. So I gave her 50 pence for the towel full of ice. Brought it back into the dressing room, and we spent the next 2 hours putting it on Johnny's face, trying to get the swelling down, you know. Doctor came in at the end and looked, oh, see, that's a big improvement.
Caldwell was allowed to box on and went on to win a bronze medal. His exploits were matched by Freddie Gilroy and Tony Byrne. A team of just 7 boxers with their manager in hospital had won 3 bronze medals, and there was Fred Teat to come.
The welterweights. 2 new nations to the fore. Fred Teat of Ireland in the white shorts.
He was to box the Romanian Nicolae Lincea for gold.
Time and time again, the clever Irishman has Lincea moving back, but the Romanian's counterboxing is first class.
The fight would go down as one of the great injustices in Irish sport.
Under the rules, and I just have a copy here, there's a criteria. If you can't give a draw. The 2 judges that gave it a draw had to give a winner. And the first 2 things on the criteria is for most leading off and showing better style. That should have been Fred Teat.
The judge's decision went to Lincea, and he became the first Romanian ever to win a boxing gold medal. Lincea first, Teat second, Kevin Hogarth, Australia, and Nicky Cargano of Great Britain equal third.
1956 remains to this day the greatest year in Ireland's Olympic Games history. Not only did Ronnie Delaney outrun the best in the world to pick up the gold medal in the 1500 metres, but the boxers piled up an astonishing tally of 4 medals.
It was a tremendous feat to bring home so many medals from an Olympic Games. It also copper-fastened the self-confidence that the boxing community had in their own talents and in their own ability to produce results, irrespective of what the lack of funding and the lack of resources that always plagued the association itself.
Despite his silver medal in Melbourne, Fred Teat will always be remembered by Irish amateur boxing fans as one half of the greatest rivalry the sport in Ireland has witnessed. After one of their battles, Perry followed Teat to his corner and said, "We'll have to give this up, Fred. We're killing each other."
England versus Ireland at the Albert Hall under ABA rules.
Tony Byrne returned from Melbourne and further enhanced his reputation in one of the most talked about fights of the era. Just after the games were over, he fought the Olympic champion, the great Dick McTaggart, on his own patch in London and beat him with some ease.
Before long, he has McTaggart on his knees, but not for the full count. Dick's tougher than that.
That was a big fight on television. Not too many televisions in Drogheda at that time, in the 50s, so we all got the black and white to see Tony Socks in the Albert Hall beating McTaggart, and that was wonderful.
Altogether, a mighty near thing, but it ends in a points victory for the battering bakery salesman from Ireland, Tony Byrne.
After the Olympics, Freddie Gilroy and John Caldwell turned pro, and between them won British, Commonwealth, European and world titles. It was inevitable that the former roommates at the Melbourne Games would eventually fight each other as professionals.
Round 8.
And it turned into as bloody a spectacle as was ever witnessed in a ring.
The world was worried about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the impending Third World War, where being Belfast, of course, their own two superpowers, John Caldwell and Freddie Gilroy, were boxing at the King's Hall that October night. One hero from West Belfast, one hero from North Belfast, two men who had travelled the world and roomed together, ultimately came together in the professional boxing field for what was a grudge match.
I went up with two lads from my club, the McCormick brothers, but I was sad looking at it because they really hammered one another.
I have seen a lot of damaged boxers in this ring, but I've never seen the like of it in my life. Both boys are spattered with blood. Their faces are hardly visible behind a mask of blood.
Even prior to the fight, every night you looked at the paper, it was about the fight. You know, the two local boys, what's going to happen, how they're going to prepare for the fight. It ended up, I forgot all about papers, reading papers about the fight, and concentrated on how I was going to defend my title and win it and keep my titles. John, I felt, read the papers too much.
And still they come in for more.
Any fight, I went to Mass in the morning of the fight, and I asked for guidance and for no injury to come to my opponent or myself. But when I got into the ring, I probably hurt him, he hurt me. But that is boxing.
It seems doubtful. Oh, it's doubtful if Caldwell can finish on this round. He is a mess. Even Gilroy feels ashamed to carry on.
To me, it wasn't boxing because there was a tension there, you know, and I taught myself at the time to go through the whole boxing career from school by level and you end up fighting, not boxing, fighting, you know. Shouldn't have happened, you know.
Well, there it is, the end of the 9th round. Johnny Caldwell with a very badly cut eye, and Andy Smith, the referee, goes over to the Gilroy and has declared him the winner. So, Freddie Gilroy, Empire and British bantamweight champion, has retained his titles.
Belfast's reputation for producing world-class fighters was further enhanced with the emergence of Jim McCourt in the early 60s. McCourt fought out of the Immaculata Club in the Lower Falls district of West Belfast.
John Caldwell was in the same club as me, and he was at the 56 Olympics. I remember saying, which was me, and and Freddie Gilroy was there too, and Fred Teat, and I was just sort of daydreaming that I maybe sometime would make the Olympic team, so.
Japanese demonstrated their superb efficiency and organising ability, and with the aid of television, the Games made their greatest ever impact on the world.
McCord was selected for the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo, and by the quarter-final stage he was the last Irishman standing. He guaranteed himself a bronze at the very least by beating the Spaniard Barrera. Then it was on to the semi-final and the fight with the Russian Baranikov.
I didn't really think about the medal, actually. You know, I was more interested in fighting the Russian. Prior to me, he knocked his 4 opponents out, including Janis Katie, who was the reigning European champion. The judges' scores, and you can check it up, like, 3 judges made it 59-59. 2 judges gave it to me 60-58, and the 3 59-59s had to give the decision, and they gave it to the Russian. So that's how close it was. The Russian, in turn, he got a bad decision in the final against the Pole, Joseph Grudzian. And then Ireland fought Poland about 6 months later, and I fought Grudzian and beat him handily enough. Like.
Jim McCord was part of the Ireland team that travelled to the Mexico Olympics 4 years later, but was surprisingly beaten in his first fight.
And procedure has got in, and so Jim McCord, who won a bronze medal in Tokyo in 1964, is out of these Olympics in his first bout.
With the team's most experienced campaigner out of the competition, Ireland's hopes of a medal rested on a young squad, including 19-year-old Martin Quinn.
I moved to Belfast, and then I joined up with the John Bosco Club in Belfast, Freddie Gilroyd's club. Watching Freddie training, and we were always trying to copy of him, and you know, he was a southpaw, I was also left-handed, so I was a southpaw. We was just watching him and trying to throw the same punches he was throwing. You know. After the seniors, I boxed against West Germany in Dublin, and then they picked the Olympic team that Sunday to go to Mexico. And I can remember up in my bedroom and listening to their small radio ahead, and the team was being announced. And when I heard my name over the radio, it was, oh my goodness. I came down into the we call it kitchen then, and told my mother and father I was going to the Olympic Games, you know, and you know, it was just in cloud, you know. I went out into the street and was telling my neighbours, I'm going to Mexico, I'm going to the Olympics, you know. It was a marvellous experience, you know, to get picked to box for your country, you know.
The flames burst into life, and the signal goes round the world that this 19th celebration of the modern games is underway.
It took 11 hours flying time now, and we're going to KLM flight, I can remember well, but it was very tiring when we got there, getting to the village, and I can remember just clocking out, top of the bed, and waking up the next day, and there I was, you know, looking out the window in the village, and you know, it was a tremendous, watching all the different tracksuits in different countries, you know, walking about, and marvellous experience, you know.
Another of the Olympic debutants in 1968 was a young fighter from Kilkenny in his first major international tournament.
I had only about 2.5 years experience in boxing, but I earned that trip to the Mexico Olympics because here at this stadium I boxed Horst Rascher, who was the European champion from Germany, and I beat him. And that win, along with a few other good performances, that guaranteed me my place on the Mexico Olympic team, and that was a fantastic experience. 2 of my clubmates came with me. Brendan McCarthy, one of the best flyweights to ever grace the ring here at the stadium. Eddie Tracy at featherweight, another brilliant boxer. So Arbor Hill Club at that time, wearing black and amber, my old county's colours actually, Kilkenny. 3 of us went to the Mexico Olympic Games, and that was absolutely outstanding for a club. And it so happened we were flyweight, bantamweight and featherweight.
Darling is only 19. He works in a Dublin hotel as a waiter. Number 178. Keep your eye on this right hand of Darling, because it can do damage. It's a good punch.
Mick Dowling's Olympic career got off to some start by stopping the East German boxer in the first round.
What a chance here for Darling now. Oh, and there it is again.
He eventually got through to the quarter-final, where he just missed out on a bronze medal, losing a close decision to Morioka, the Japanese boxer. Meanwhile, Marty Quinn got his tournament off to a similarly dramatic start.
So it's Martin Quinn of Ireland, the bout at lightweight. His opponent is Sambo Bernard of the Cameroons. Oh, that's two good right hands to Bernard. He's got Bernard in trouble in this first round. Belting him away to the body, left and right hand, and Bernard goes down in the corner in the first. He's in awful trouble.
When I beat the fella from the Cameroons, that gave me a good buzz there, and I could lift. And then when I was drawn against Grudgin from Poland, Jim McCourt knew him well because he was the gold medalist. Jim got the bronze in Tokyo that year, and Grudgin got the gold.
Oh, what a good left-handed he's got with the big champion on the floor at the very end of this bout.
It was a cracking punch, and I look at it and I say, my goodness. And with him being so groggy and falling about and that, he was hurt, you know.
There can only be seconds to go, and Grugin is in trouble from Martin Quinn of Ireland.
Even though I did put him down in the third round and messed it up by not going to the neutral corner quick enough. And I can remember Eddie Thompson telling me he counted 18 seconds wasted before the referee got the count, taken up the count. So, you know, when he did get up, he was groggy, he was crowding about. The referee just waved it in the box. As soon as I moved in, the bell went. So he was actually saved by the bell, really, you know.
Well, despite that knockdown, Grugin is the winner and goes through to the quarterfinals. But what a display by the Irishman.
I'm sorry I didn't go back and train and make my sights on Munich in '72, because I feel I could have got there, the Munich Olympics. But I was so mixed up then, because then what happened was my house was burned in '69 with the troubles in Belfast, and all my trophies were burned, and my competitors' medal, and all my photographs, and you know, my mother died shortly after that, which didn't help me any, and then a brother too passed away young. Things just, boxing just was, I just total lost interest in it, you know.
Marty Quinn's teammate in Mexico, Mick Dowling, did box on, and he built one of the most remarkable careers in Irish amateur boxing. A record number of national titles was capped with 2 bronze medals at European Championships. And after the fighting was over, Dowling became an integral part of the Drimna boxing story. A story that would eventually end the country's long, long wait for that elusive Olympic boxing gold.